Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Sleepy Chronicles. Before we journey back in time, please take a moment to get comfortable. Adjust your pillows, pull up your blanket, and make sure you are in a position where you can fully relax. Tonight, we begin a 5-part series exploring the hidden reality of a medieval princess. Forget the fairy tales. This is a story of survival, duty, and the quiet strength found within a gilded cage. We will follow a young princess from her cold English castle through a perilous sea crossing to the sophisticated but treacherous French court. You will witness her arranged marriage, the pressures of producing an heir, and her ultimate quest to find a sense of self in a world that views her only as a political tool. Part 1. The Stone Chamber and the Kings Command You. Wake up in a stone chamber in 13th-century England. The first thing you feel is a stabbing cold that makes your bones ache. There is no soft mattress here. You are lying on rustling straw shared with mice, and your skin itches from the bites of fleas and bed bugs. The room is pitch black, saved only by a sliver of dawn light piercing through narrow window slits. There is no privacy. Your ladies-in-waiting sleep in the same room, one even at the foot of your bed. Your maid, Alice, is already stoking the fire. "It's time for morning prayers, my lady," she says. This is not a request. Whether you are tired or sick, God comes first. As Alice wrestles you into layers of linen and heavy silk, you feel the weight of your status. Your clothing is designed to display wealth, not for comfort. Your hair is tucked under a linen veil because it is considered too sensual to be seen in public. "Hurry now," Alice urges. "Your father will be displeased." In this world, your father is more than a parent, he is the king. He controls everything: what you eat, who you speak to, and most importantly, who you will marry. Displeasing him doesn't just mean a lecture. It could mean being sent to a convent or worse. You walk through dark, smoky corridors to the chapel. You stand behind the men, for that is your place. As the priest drones in Latin, your stomach growls, but you must remain still and look pious. After prayers, you enter the great hall for a breakfast of coarse bread and ale. Alice leans in and whispers, "Your father wishes to speak with you after the meal." Your stomach clenches. A summons from the king rarely means good news. It usually means a development in marriage negotiations. You are 13 years old. In another time, you would be a child, but here, you are a political asset. As you follow your father to his private chamber, you see squires practicing swordplay in the yard. They are laughing, their futures determined by their own skills. Your future was decided the moment you were born royal and female. The king doesn't look at you as he speaks. King of France has proposed a match, he says. You are to marry Prince Philip. You have never met him. You don't speak his language. But the alliance will bring trade rights and land. The wedding will take place next spring, he declares. You will bring honor to our family. You nod because there is nothing else to do. Your life, as you know it now, has an expiration date. In less than a year, you will be shipped across the sea to a stranger's bed. How will our princess prepare for this sudden transformation? Part 2. The thorns of education and the French shadow as you leave the king's chamber. Alice is waiting in the corridor, her face pale. France, she whispers, and you simply nod. There is no time to process the news or weep. A princess must immediately begin a brutal transformation. Your life now has an expiration date, and every hour is filled with the relentless pressure of preparing you for a foreign court. Your education is not for fulfillment, but for survival. Your mornings are dominated by Lady Catherine, a stern woman with thin lips who spent her youth in the French court. She carries a small wooden paddle, and every time you mispronounce a French nasal vowel, the paddle whacks your knuckles. By the end of 2 excruciating hours, your fingers are red and swollen, but you do not cry out. Princesses do not show pain. After languages comes the needlework. You sit for hours over an embroidery frame, stitching a complex scene of the Annunciation. Your back aches from hunching over, and your eyes strain in the dim light of the stone chamber. Alice watches your every move. Smaller stitches, she reminds you. A French lady would use stitches so small they can hardly be seen. You pull out the last row and start again, realizing that with every stitch, you are literally creating the artifact of your own subjugation. The afternoons are reserved for the grimmer realities of your future. Brother Thomas, a dry-voiced monk, teaches you household management and mathematics. You must learn to track expenditures using Roman numerals, calculating the cost of wheat and salt fish. For a lady who cannot manage her household is at the mercy of thieving servants. Then comes Father Ambrose, who lectures you on the duties of a wife. A wife must be submissive in all things, he drones, reminding you that your body is a vessel for heirs, a duty that often leads to an early grave in the birthing chamber. At supper, the pressure does not relent. Your father criticizes your progress publicly, using shame as a tool to sharpen your focus. I won't have the French court laughing at English education, he barks. You lower your eyes and nod, the perfect mask of a serene princess, hiding the resentment and fear beneath. As the months pass and winter loosens its grip, the first signs of spring appear, and with them French delegation. They have come to finalize the contract and escort you to the sea. You are dressed in your finest blue wool and silver thread, representing England one last time. The marriage is performed by proxy. You stand before a stranger who represents Prince Philip, and a cold gold ring is slid onto your finger. You are now a wife to a man you have never met, a French princess who has never seen France. Tonight, as Alice packs your trunks, you look at your reflection in the polished metal mirror. You see a girl of 13 with the tired, resigned eyes of an old woman. Tomorrow, the journey to the coast begins. You will face the gray, churning waters of the Channel, leaving your home behind forever. Are you ready to cross the sea into the unknown? The morning of your departure breaks cold and misty, the kind of dampness that clings to the castle stones like a shroud. You have barely slept, your mind haunted by dreams of labyrinthine French corridors where no one understands your English tongue. Alice shakes you awake before the dawn bells, her touch gentle but firm. As you dress in your heavy traveling wool, you realize these familiar English garments are now wrapping you for a journey from which you may never return. The courtyard is a chaotic swarm of horses, carts, and men-at-arms. Your father stands by the gate, his face a mask of royal business. He kisses your forehead, reminding you one last time to represent England well. Your mother embraces you briefly, whispering, "Remember who you are," before stepping back into her role as the impassive queen. There are no tears, for medieval royalty does not indulge in public displays of emotion. The 3-day journey to Dover is grueling. The roads are rutted dirt tracks turned to thick mud by spring rains, and you sleep in drafty abbeys where the straw mattresses harbor the usual fleas. But nothing prepares you for the sight of the sea. At the harbor, the stench of salt air, rotting fish, and sewage hits you first. Then you see your vessel, the Sainte Marie, a tiny wooden ship bobbing alarmingly against the gray, white-capped waves of the Channel. Best to board quickly, Lady Isabel says, taking your arm. You are half carried into a small boat and rowed out to the ship, the water splashing over the sides and soaking your hem. Your cabin is a mere shelf in a space that reeks of tar and the sickness of previous passengers. As the ship leaves the shelter of the harbor, the full force of the sea takes hold. The vessel pitches and rolls so violently that within an hour you are wretchedly ill. Alice holds your hair back as you retch into a bucket, while Lady Isabel stands by, miraculously unaffected by the motion. A storm blows up midway, stretching the half-day crossing into a full day and night of pitching agony. You pray not the formal Latin prayers of the priest, but desperate personal pleas for survival. You realize that if you disappeared beneath these waves, the political machinery would simply find another princess for France. Finally, the cry of Calais echoes from the deck. You are pale, unwashed, and weak, but you must put on a clean gown and the mask of a princess once more. As you are carried off the ship, you see a magnificent welcoming party of French nobles and royal guards. This is France. You are no longer under your father's protection. You are a wife, a diplomat, and a living symbol of an alliance. You are escorted to the Chateau de Calais, where a hot bath scented with lavender awaits, a rare luxury that feels like heaven against your salt-chafed skin. But there is no time to truly recover. The local nobility await an audience. Lady Isabel informs you. You straighten your back, lift your head, and enter the great hall to greet French strangers in their own tongue. You are a success story in the marriage market, but as you look at the unfamiliar faces, you know the hardest part is yet to come. The long road to Paris begins tomorrow, and at the end of it waits the prince you have married but never met. The journey from the coast to the heart of France felt like an endless fever dream of jolting litters and strange faces. For over a week, you traveled through a countryside that grew progressively more vibrant. Yet your back screamed from the rutted roads, and your mind felt hollow with exhaustion. Each night, you were forced to perform at the castles of French nobles, smiling through your fatigue and reciting the French phrases Lady Isabel had hammered into your memory. You were no longer a girl. You were a moving spectacle of English diplomacy. Finally, the spires of Paris pierced the horizon, dominated by the skeletal beauty of Notre Dame. Unlike your father's grim, defensive fortress, the French royal palace was a masterpiece of stone carvings and light, with windows of actual glass that shimmered like jewels. As your procession approached, the air filled with the blare of silver trumpets. At the center of the royal guard sat a young man on a magnificent white horse, dressed in the deep blue and gold of the French crown. This was Prince Philip, your husband. He was taller than you imagined, but slender, almost delicate, with intelligent blue-gray eyes and waves of light brown hair. As he dismounted and bowed lower than protocol required, you saw a flicker of genuine concern in his gaze. "You must be exhausted," he said softly, his voice a gentle contrast to the rigid greetings of the court. He even noticed your English books, arranging for them to be placed in your new chambers. For a moment, the heavy stone in your stomach felt a little lighter. However, the luxury of the palace was merely a beautiful cage. The evening feast was a blur of rich spices and rapid French gossip that left you struggling to keep up. Beside you, Philip was a quiet anchor, translating idioms and shielding you from the sharpest eyes of the court. But beneath the wine and music, the true test loomed, the ceremonial consummation. After the feast, Lady Isabel and the French ladies stripped away your courtly armor. They bathed you in rose water and dressed you in a fine linen shift blessed by a priest, their eyes evaluating your young, adolescent body like a commodity. You were a vessel for heirs, a tool to bind two kingdoms. When Philip entered the massive bedchamber, he looked as nervous as you felt. Instead of the cold, mechanical duty you expected, Philip sat beside you and spoke. "I have no wish to cause you fear," he whispered, taking your hand with a scholar's gentleness. "You spent hours talking not as royals, but as two children bound by a fate they didn't choose." He spoke of the stars and philosophy. You spoke of the stories Alice read to you in the dark. When the night finally required the union that would make the alliance legal, he was apologetic and quick. As you lay in the unfamiliar bed afterward, Philip didn't leave. He stayed, whispering for you to rest. But as you drifted toward sleep, you remembered Lady Isabel's warning. The court's kindness only lasts as long as your fertility. You have survived the journey and the stranger's bed. But now the real battle begins, the battle to produce an heir before the whispers of the court turn into knives. Months passed in a blur of French etiquette and shifting loyalties. Your English accent slowly faded, replaced by the sharp, elegant vowels of the Parisian elite. Yet the court remained a battlefield of whispers. They watched your waistline for signs of an heir, their smiles turning to cold speculation as your courses arrived with predictable regularity. But beneath the public scrutiny, a rare and quiet partnership bloomed with Philip. He shared his secret library with you, treating your mind with a respect no tutor in England ever had then. As the first fragile blossoms of spring appeared in the palace gardens, the news broke. You were with child. Overnight, the hostile glares softened into fawning attention. Yet, as your belly grew, so did your fear. You remembered the women in your father's court who vanished into birthing chambers and never emerged. Philip, sensing your terror, broke every tradition by hiring an Italian physician and demanding to stay near you. When the labor finally came on a cool September morning, it was a brutal, hours-long struggle that pushed you to the brink of death. In the dim light of the Queen's chamber, surrounded by the scent of lavender and the prayers of midwives, you fought your final battle for survival. There was a tearing pain, a desperate cry, and then relief. A son, Henry. By producing the heir, you finally secured your place. You were no longer just a political pawn. You were the mother of a future king. With this newfound power, you turned to Philip and asked for a legacy of your own, a grand library. You envisioned a sanctuary of knowledge for girls who, like you, were often left in the dark. Within the gilded cage of the French court, you had carved out a space for your own soul. As our story concludes, feel the weight of the day lifting from your shoulders. The heavy tapestries of the palace are drawn tight, shutting out the cold world. You are safe. You are at peace. Imagine the soft rustle of parchment and the distant, rhythmic calling of the night. Watch as they signal that all is well. Let your breath slow down. Inhale the scent of dried lavender and old books. Your journey is over, and it is time to rest. You have navigated the storms and survived the shadows. Now, there is only the silence of the night and the warmth of your blanket. Sleep now and dream of your own stories yet to be written. Good night from Sleepy Chronicles. Gently, softly, fall into a deep, dreamless sleep. Good night.